This is my next project. It's the modified go-kart, and I encourage you to go back and watch the intro modified go-kart video to see how this was when I got it and what I've done to it so far. I've got a cage I'm going to be putting on it. I've got a little bit of suspension and front end work that I want to change on it, but let's get started. So this is the cage from the Poor Boy Polaris. If you don't know what the Poor Boy Polaris is, I suggest you go back and watch the playlist on it. It's just precariously sitting on there right now. Of course, it's got to be trimmed up and stuff to fit on here, but I'm going to try this first to see what it looks like. There's unistrut on the back end instead of tubing, which is what I had at the time, and I may change that out for tubing. I may take it completely off. I got to see how all this fits because I may end up having to cut this hoop out anyway, so this may actually fit even better. I'm going to trim that down and see what I can do with it. Beautiful. Okay, first attempt cutting off the bottom of it. It's still way too high. It's too tall. I am going to end up just cutting all this off. I think the strut's kind of ugly anyway. I want to do it back in tubing. And the front end and the top is still way too high. It's way over my head, so. Hey, at least I got it on film. That's what happens when I'm in the shop by myself. So fitting number 2, this is still too tall. I'm going to have to cut both of these down. This should be just above the front pieces up there. So take this back off and trim it a little bit more. I'm getting a lot closer. I'm starting to like this a lot better. One thing I'm dealing with on this thing is this go-kart has got a little twist to it. The cage that I built, I haphazardly kind of put together, and either one of them, plumb or square or whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to try to straighten up some of that, doing some adjusting on it. I'm going to get it to where I can tack it in place for now, where I can get in it and see if it's going to be the right height or too high or too low or whatever. So I got this thing just tacked into place right now. Seeing if I can get in and out of it and how much space I have above my helmet, which this is one of the kids' helmets. It's probably too small for them, and it's very small for me. I think that's going to be a lot better. Kind of in the way of my knees, but I'm going to have the seat back a little bit more and the steering wheel up a little bit, which will help. now with this bar added in here and that hoop on the back cut off and this bar cut out, I should be able to pull the seat back a little further, and then I'll probably come off of here with another loop around when I figure out what I'm going to do about a motor and how much space it's going to take up and all that. I'm getting ready to do a little work to the front end of this go-kart, and this is what's left of the front end of the four-wheeler that I took the motor off for the mini semi. And I had thought about using this suspension, and this has disc brakes on it, but these A-arms are made to angle down really far, and I would have to do a lot of changing, a lot of fabricating, basically cut the whole front end off and redo it. So I don't really feel like doing that right now. And when I originally did this go-kart front end, these A-arms are off of a Chinese four-wheeler. And I just used the existing steering that was on here, but that's how much bump steer there is in this thing as it goes up and down. So I've got this rack right here, and it measures from pivot point to pivot point 10 inches, which is what the distance is on my A-arms there from pivot point to pivot point. And it come with, you know, a new steering arm and new tie rods and all that. Even came with a steering wheel. But I have another steering wheel that I'm planning on using. So I think I'm going to get to tearing that stuff off and seeing if I can figure out how to mount this steering rack on there. So I'm thinking about using this bracket off the steering, because this will actually go through here. If I can do this one-handed, like that, and then I can bolt this on where it was. That'll be pretty close. I have to drill my two mounting holes here. I may trim this down a little bit narrower, like bring it up and around. Something like that, round it off maybe. So I did a whole lot of modifying and cutting and drilling and grinding. Got that bracket a little more to suit me. I think what I'm going to have to do is cut this bracket probably in half. Lower that down a little bit more. So I took these shocks off of the front piece that I had there, and they're the right length, and I have no idea how stiff they need to be, but they'll work fine at the top. But I'm probably going to have to make a new bracket for the bottom down here to be able to hold it. It's a little too wide to go down into there. I took the shocks off of this go-kart to use on the mini T-bucket, and they were on the hardest setting on here, but they're on the lightest setting on the mini T-bucket. And on here, even on the hardest setting, they were still a little bit too light. And I imagine those will be quite a bit stiffer, but there's no way of knowing until I get them put on there. Well, I got the tie rods in and they're adjusted most of the way out, and they're going to have to go even more, so I'm going to have to lengthen these tie rods out, which I knew I would. This is a modified go-kart, something that I modified. It's more of an adult size. Same way with this steering shaft right here. Is probably going to have to be about 6 inches longer because it's going to have to come out and up considerably. Now to do the other one. Watch out, dog. Watch out. Guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. On the next video, we'll figure out what we're going to do about an engine on this thing, which one we're going to use, how we're going to do it. We'll have to put a back loop on here, some caging on the back of here. Got to finish the steering and mounting the steering wheel, figure out what height that needs to be at. And we'll see where that goes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.